Hey everyone, hope you guys are all doing well out there. So the topic today is something I'm sure a ton of people have opinions on. I'm always pretty impartial when it comes to brands, but I just wanted to share why I chose to move away from Android after many years and pick up an iPhone. So without further ado, here is my top 4 reasons why I switched from Android to iOS. All right, number 4 on the list is operating system updates. If you have an Apple device that came out even semi-recently, you'll get all the newest updates just like that as soon as they're announced. On Android, you could end up waiting months or even close to a year in some cases just to get the latest version. With iOS, the moment that gets released, I can go download it and get all the latest features and updates. And not only does it suck to have to wait for these updates, I used to be Googling release dates for Android versions for my phone and try and find speculated release dates, and it was just painful sometimes waiting if you were looking for a specific update. Because the Android OS is so fractured with so many different versions out there, there's going to be a lot lower adoption rate for newer versions. You end up just building apps that are more compatible with a variety of devices without all the latest and greatest features. Sort of like a few years ago if you made websites or web apps and you had to ditch all the cool new browser features because you needed to support Internet Explorer. Do you guys remember Internet Explorer? On to number 3, the ecosystem. Yes, the ecosystem. I'm sure anyone who follows tech and is aware of Apple knows about the ecosystem. Basically, when we talk about it, what we're referring to is all the different Apple products available and how they all work together seamlessly. In my particular case, I'm not even that entrenched in it myself, but I use Mac OS during the day when I work, and I have my iPhone sitting right next beside my MacBook, and I can be working away and see all my phone calls pop up on my Mac screen as well as my text messages. And I can actually interact with them through my laptop. And that's not to say that there aren't solutions out there that do this for Android, but you'll have to go and find an app on Android and probably find the accompanying one for whatever desktop operating system you're on. And I find they never quite work the same. Also, just being able to use AirDrop for transferring files is also a huge plus. Not having to connect your phone to a computer or upload to the cloud or something as a file transfer solution is really nice to have. On to number 2 is a focus on privacy. This is something I think was brought on more from the public rather than Apple themselves. But I do think that they are headed the right direction when it comes to this. I know there's still a lot of work to be done here, but I do appreciate the effort surrounding privacy. And at the very least, just letting people know what is actually going on with their data and making them aware that privacy is probably something that you should be paying attention to is really good. I really like what they've done surrounding social login as well. If you're making an app now and you have social login in your app, so Facebook and Google login, you'll also have to have an option in here to include Apple Sign-In. And Apple Sign-In is pretty neat. Not only can you sign up to an app through it, you can also mask your email address in the sign-up process so that the company collecting your info won't have any access to your actual email address. Apple also started to tighten things up around how apps can use your data, and it's being more upfront about what you're opting into, how your apps are using your data and things like this. I really hope this continues and things get even tighter in that regard. As an Android user for many years, something about having a phone running on services made by an ad company never quite felt right to me. I do realize I'm talking to you on a platform that is also owned by Google, and I'm not trying to ditch everything Google, but I have started to split up a lot of my accounts to be with different companies to at least attempt to try and not have all my data sitting under one roof. All right, finally, number one, apps are just easier to build and work better on iOS. All right, I originally had these as two separate points, but because they are so connected to each other, I've decided to put them together. Let's start off with why apps are easier to build. I think the actual process of just coding an app used to be a lot easier on Android. But Apple has really made some leaps and bounds, and they've come out with Swift UI alongside the release of iOS 13, and it really feels like it modernizes iOS development. You also only have to worry about a handful of devices if you're making an iOS app, and usually they all share very similar hardware, and there really isn't much change between any of them when you make an app. I can probably count the times on one hand where I've made an app and it had a bug on one Apple device and not the other. On Android, one problem you run into is you've got literally hundreds of different devices running on different versions of Android and all different hardware. So if you aren't a software developer, you might be saying, so what? I don't have to build the app. It's not my problem. Well, this totally does have a trickle-down effect. It's not going to be for every app. For huge, well-known, highly used apps where companies have hundreds of developers working on a single app, you're probably not going to see a lot of difference. One of the things that I've noticed as an Android user for so many years is some apps either just come out for iOS or they're released a lot earlier than their Android counterparts. Clubhouse is actually a pretty good example of this. An app that is currently only on iOS and that's working on an Android release. But we've also seen this in the past a lot as well. Instagram is a really good example, which was out on iOS for a few years before it actually made its way to Android. When apps do find their way to Android, I find that they can be a little bit buggy sometimes, especially if they're using hardware controls. Again, because there are so many different devices out there using so much different hardware and software versions, you can run into some snags. For instance, I was running the DJI Fly app and I was getting really weird behavior where the app was saying I was flying a different model of drone entirely, and I was getting some weird connection issues as well. You can see here in this video, my drone went into return to home mode because basically everything had shut down on my phone, lost all connection, and it was actually kind of a scary moment because I was over top of a lake. I went online to the DJI forums and found that other people were having the same issue on Android, but as soon as I switched to iOS, the problem was gone. You'll also notice in Android release notes sometimes, for things like camera apps, there may be a compatibility list with a list of phones that are supported, and you may or may not find your phone on that list depending on the model. With an Apple device, you aren't going to have to worry about this at all, and I think that's the stage where I'm at right now. I just don't want to worry about a lot of these things anymore. Sure, Android can be great for things like customization, being able to load side apps, custom ROMs, and all that stuff. I used to be really into all of that, but now for the majority of the time, I just want something that works and works well. As I said at the start of the video, I don't hold any allegiance to any particular brand. I just find what works best for me, and that's kind of what I roll with. I have computers that are on Macs, some on Windows. Those brands don't make me feel anything in particular or really matter to me at all. It's just more about what I'm using them for. There may be a time when I decide to go back to Android, and it might be better for me again in the future, but for right now, I'm just really loving iOS. All right, I'm gonna leave a few links down below with some iPhone gear that I really like, so if you're interested, feel free to check that out. If you've got something to say on this topic, leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, please help me out by hitting that like button and subscribe for more tech-related content. I've got some more reviews and stuff on the way. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.